So for today's demo, we're going to be doing what is called a potato leek soup, or I like to call it loaded baked potato soup, because what we put on the toppings is really what makes the soup. So again, we're going to be doing a half recipe, so we're only going to do 2 potatoes, but I wanted to show you one of your new ingredients, which is a leek, okay? And the portion that you're going to do is just right in between here and here. So from all the way to the white to the light green. Now, these, I will show you, come in these neat little layers. And so you need to make sure that you really clean inside those layers, because when these grow, really the ground level's here. So everything down here is underground, which can get the sand in. So what you want to do is go to your very end and make a little cut, and then cut off your root ends, okay? So this becomes the trash, and you can see it has those neat little rings. So we're not gonna use those. And then what you wanna do is take it and cut it lengthwise right down the middle so that you have 2 half circles. Now, what you need to do is go run this under the water. You'll see you have all these little layers, and I tend to take the first layer as well and throw that away because that's the one that was touching the soil, and give this a quick rinse. So we'll go do that. Make sure you're running under some cool water. Okay. So we are going to do a pureed soup. So our cuts don't have to be perfect, but we don't want the blender to have to do too much of the work. So slice them lengthwise again, and then just give them a small dice rough chop. Okay, so there's our leek. Now in this recipe that you're going to be doing, it does say half an onion to a whole leek, but because we're going to be doing a half a recipe at home, you can go ahead and just use the entire leek and eliminate the onion. So the first step in making this soup is to go ahead and start to cook your leek and onion. And what we're going to do is we're going to steam them. We're not going to add any color. So what we do need is a little bit of fat, and this is a cold pot. So you can use, if you do eat pork and bacon, you could dice up your bacon and use the pork fat to start everything in. I do that at home, I love it. But for demo, I'm going to show you with a little bit of butter. Now if you don't have butter or margarine, a little bit of oil will work as well. So in the cold pot, add that butter and your entire leek. And when we steam, again, we're extracting the juices that are in the vegetables, and we're not getting any color, because what we want is a nice white velvety soup. So this goes on the stove, again, small pot, lid on, and put it on a low heat just till they start to cook. And you'll start to see them get a little bit brown, brighter in color, and that's what we're looking for. Okay, so right over there, I have that going. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go wash and peel both of my potatoes and rinse them so that they're nice and clean. I'll be right with you. So I have peeled both my potatoes, dried them. You want to make sure you're looking at your potato, look to see if you happen to have any brown spots, maybe a couple more times with the vegetable peeler. I can see I might have a brown spot here, but as I'm cutting, I can just discard that. So you want to cut these in a large dice. We don't want to go too small with them. So I'm going to cut this in about thirds, depending again on the size of the potato. And then I'm going to take that, I'm going to cut them in half this way, and then make pretty large 1-inch chunks. Okay, so not too small. We want the potato to cook and not fall apart while it's cooking. We really kind of want it to stay together. And we can test whether it has cooked all the way through or not, and I'll show you how to do that later. So I'm going to check on, I can hear my onion and leek is starting to cook in that butter. And again, it's on a medium to low heat, nothing too big. Okay, let's cut these up, make a pile. Okay, so let's take a look. You can start to see they're starting to brighten up a little bit. They need about another 5 minutes or so, so let's check them in a little bit. Okay, so I have all my potatoes cut up, ready to go. I'm going to show you, I took the lid off. You can see they're a little bit brighter green, and that's what you're looking for. You've got to remember, no color, okay? So now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add all of those potatoes, turn it this way, into the pot. And then I want to show you the next key to this is adding the vegetable stock. Now you can use chicken stock. I would not use beef stock. I would use either a vegetable or a chicken. I'm going to keep this completely vegetarian today, other than I use the butter. And you need, I'm going to start with 2 cups, and if I need to, I'll add some more. And what you want to do is you want to add enough stock. I'm going to add almost all 2 cups. And you want to add just enough so that your potatoes are completely covered. Now I'm just kind of moving them around a little bit so that get some of that leek off the bottom. And you can see there is a couple where they're just poking out, but that's what we want. We don't want them completely covered because then we might add too much liquid and then we'd have too watery of a soup. This is kind of in between the thickness of a really thin soup and we don't want it thick like an oatmeal. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn my heat up because I want to bring this to a boil, and then I'm going to go ahead and cover it. Now, if you start seeing too much steam coming out the sides of your pot, you need to turn it down. So we're going to bring it up to a boil, and then we're going to turn it down and we're going to allow it to simmer until it's fork tender. That could take anywhere about 20 to 30 minutes. It's been about 10 minutes, and what I wanted to do was just show you the temperature of this. So it's starting to boil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and give it a little stir. And always make sure that anything that's up on the side, especially those leeks, will get stuck up on the side. You need to make sure they're down in that liquid. And then I'm going to turn it down to about that medium low. If I start seeing a lot of steam coming out, then I know my soup is evaporating too much, and then it's going to be way too thick. So turn it down. Should be a nice low little boil. Lid on. And then we're going to have to check it until the potatoes are tender, and we want to check it with a dinner fork. We want to make sure those potatoes are just completely falling apart in the soup. That's how we know they're going to be done. So we're going to let it go another 10 minutes and we'll check it. While our soup continues to cook, since that's going to take about, like I said, 20 to 30 minutes, you can go ahead and prepare your toppings, right? What do we like to have on our baked potatoes? That's kind of the question I asked myself, but I love sour cream, so we have sour cream. I grated up some cheddar cheese, so I have some shredded cheddar cheese. The green onion that I give you, right, I want you to cut that on the bias. Remember, that's the 45, and I cut it really close. So these are nice, really thin, little tiny slivers of green onion, and you use the entire white and the green on those. Then also I showed you a picture earlier of the bacon, and what I did was I took 2 slices of bacon and I actually stuck them in the freezer for about 10 minutes. This is a little trick I have. And it helps to semi-freeze the bacon, and then when you cut it, you can get nice little slivers out of it. So I cooked that in that Teflon pan on a very low heat, and then used a perforated or a slotted spoon, removed the bacon, and put it on a couple layers of paper towels because you want the grease to be soaked up in the paper towels. Now, the grease that is left in that pan, do not, I'm telling you this, do not put that down the sink, okay? If you have some time, go look up a YouTube video that's called Fat Globs in Sewer Drains, okay? So that fat will literally go about 20 feet down the pipes, and then it cools, and then it sticks to the drain pipes, and it's going to clog. So what you do is you layer up a bunch of paper towels, soak it all up, and then put it in the trash can. Same thing with your potato skins. Those do not go down the sink. So your sink has a little drain. Okay, this should be in your sink at all times. Whatever goes through these little holes is what you can then allow to go down the drain and then run the garbage disposal. Garbage disposals are not there to chop up any food, allow it to go down the drain. If you can grab it, it goes into the trash. So I've prepared my toppings. If you don't like any of this, that's fine. Garnish it with just a little bit of parsley, and I'll show you a couple neat ways to decorate it. But I like sour cream, cheese, green onion, and bacon on mine. So go ahead and prepare your toppings. The other thing that you can change up in yours is if you want to keep it non-dairy, that's fine as well. I will not be providing the cream. This is a heavy whipping cream. You can use half and half or even a milk if you like to, or eliminate it altogether. Now, if your soup is too thick, then you might need to add some more stock to it, meaning vegetable stock or chicken stock. But this is going to help really richen up our soup. Again, not provided, so optional. Especially if you like to use a chicken stock and you keep kosher, you will not want to use the cream or the cheese. And then one of our new ingredients we're working with to season is called white pepper. It's a little spicier than black pepper. I will be giving you some of this. The reason why we do it is because if we used black pepper in our soup, we're going to have black chunks in there, and it's going to look like something got either burnt or stuck on the pot. So anytime we're doing something that's white and creamy, like even mashed potatoes, I season with white pepper. So our potato soup has been going for about 20 minutes, and what I wanted to show you was the consistency that we are looking for. Let me get you in real close. So what you're looking for is that when you're using a fork, you could take a piece of potato and push it against the side of the pot, that it just breaks up. You can stab it with a fork, and you can start to see that those potato pieces are just breaking apart on you. That's what you want in this particular soup, because we're going to be adding all of that into the blender. Okay, so this is ready. I'm going to turn that off. Now let's talk about blenders. So if for whatever reason you don't have a blender at home, you can mash this. It could stay as a chunkier type soup. You just need to be able to find something that you can run through. So we're going to use the ladle, and we're going to take our hot soup from the pot, and we're going to carefully ladle it into the blender. So depending on your type of blender, mine happens to have a removable blade. Do not ever soak this in a soapy bowl, right? Because it is like a knife. Make sure your blade is attached first if that's what you have. If it's plastic, you may want to let your soup cool just a little bit to make sure it doesn't leak or break it. So I'm going to take my hot soup, and I'm going to fit all of this into that, it's called the jar of the blender. Now, if I need to, I can add some more stock or even water if it's not blending properly. So in this pot, I want to get out all of, sorry for the scraping, all of the leeks, because the soup's going to go back in the pot, so do not wash it. Okay, so this blender type happens to have a lid that goes on. You want to make sure that the jar is down, okay, and that it is locked on. Okay, this lid locks. If your blender does not have a locking lid, okay, then you are to take a towel and put it over the top of your lid and hold it down. What happens is as soon as you start adding air to this hot liquid, it's going to expand and force that lid off, and it's going to look like a cartoon other than it's going to be hot liquid flying everywhere. So you need to make sure that you're following some safety guidelines when you're blending your soup. So I'm going to show you. So again, I do it just in case to make sure that this little part stays down. And I'm going to start on a low. And that's it. Take it off. Now, if yours did not blend that easy, I can hear mine's airlocked a little. Turn it around. Pop, give it some air. Okay, release it. I'll be very careful because there's hot soup still inside there. So I'm going to take a little spoon. I'm going to scrape. You want to scrape everything on the lid and in the jar. Take my blade out. Okay. I'm really careful. Get as much of that soup off there as I can. And let's go back over to the pot. And I'm going to take my ladle out. And be careful, that pot still could be warm if you stuck it back on the burner. And I'm going to scrape out all my soup. Okay, then I suggest you put this mixer in the sink, blender in the sink with some water in it. The potato starch will dry and it will get really thick. So we need to heat this back up, and we also haven't seasoned any of this soup yet. So I'm going to keep it on a little low. I'm going to tell you this is a little thick, okay? This is a slotted spoon, and the soup isn't pouring out the bottom. So that's too thick. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to go grab some more stock, and we'll thin it out and season it. So I started with another 1/4 cup of stock, and I added just about another 1/2 cup. Again, potatoes are going to come in different sizes. You might have some of that left over from that too. So maybe we make 3 cups of stock to start with. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just making sure everything is mixed in. And you can see now I'm also using that slotted spoon. It's coming through, but it's not thin like water. The soup definitely has some thickness to it. So we need to season now. And a couple of this is option. We talked about cream, okay? I'm gonna add the cream. I like the cream in it. I like the heaviness of it. I like the richness that it brings off and really starts to flavor the soup. So the other thing is we're gonna need a good pinch of salt, okay? Be careful because your stock that we're using is salty, so we want to be careful. And we're going to do that white pepper. So I'm going to start out with just a little pinch or a little shake of it. So maybe that's about 1/8 of a teaspoon. And I'm just going to mix that up till I start to see that it's completely mixed in. And you want to also have your soup back on. Now be careful, as it starts to heat up, it will start to thicken and pop, and you don't want it spitting all over the stove. So again, keep it nice and loose. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my spoon. I'm going to switch back over to my ladle because I really want to just, you can see the texture, the thickness on that. It is not thin like water. The cream is going to also thicken it up a little bit. So what I need to do at this point is, as it's starting to heat up and I start to see some steam coming off, is I need to taste the soup. Okay, so you're going to need a couple tasting spoons, right? We don't want to double dip, so I have 2 spoons. And I'm going to taste it. So I'm just going to dip it in. I don't go for a big bite. I just want to look for the flavor. And I want to know whether it needs a little bit more salt or pepper. I'm going to go in with just a little bit more pepper, but no more salt. Because again, the base, we're not using homemade broth or homemade stock, so we do have salt in that base. We're using bouillon, and it does have some salt. All right, we're gonna let this warm up. I'm gonna go ahead and get my garnishes back out of the refrigerator, and I'm gonna show you how to make this look really pretty. So I'm using, again, in school we have these nice little shallow bowls. Use whatever soup bowl you have at home. The reason I like doing these is that I can really show off the garnish that's on my plate, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So, soup is very hot. Bring the soup pot over your bowl. So that way when you're using your ladle, you're going to put it right in to the middle of the bowl. If I was over here and drug my ladle, I would have soup all over the edges of my rim of my bowl, and it's nice and clean. So I'm going to load this up like I said before. I like loaded baked potato soup. So I'm going to use some sour cream, and I'm going to go right into the middle, and that almost creates like a little raft for all of our other toppings. So I'm going to use some of my shredded cheese, and I'm going to put this in a little pile right up here. I'm going to go ahead and add all of it. And then I'm going to use about half that green onion. It's enough for 2 servings. And I'm going to pile that right next to it, but not on it, kind of off to the side a little bit. And then again, I said I like bacon, totally optional, and I'm going to put that right there. And then I'm going to put a little parsley sprig right in the middle. But there is your loaded baked potato soup.